The observation deck of the Xathrin research vessel hummed with the low thrum of exotic matter engines, a sound that had become white noise to 12-year-old Leora during her 3 months of captivity. She pressed her small hands against the transparent aluminum barrier, her breath fogging the surface as she watched the horror unfold in the laboratory below. Commander Dravik stood over the examination table, his four-fingered hands manipulating instruments that gleamed under the harsh violet lighting. Between those instruments lay Whiskers, though Dravik would never use such a primitive designation. To him, the creature was Specimen 7 Alpha, a common Felis catus from Earth, approximately 12 years old by human reckoning. Leora's eyes burned, but she refused to look away. She owed Whiskers that much. The Xathrin had taken them both from the colony ship Perseverance when it had been intercepted in the Kepler 442 system, while the rest of the human colonists had been detained in holding cells for processing. Leora and her cat had been separated, deemed more interesting subjects for study due to their unique interspecies bond. Fascinating, Dravik murmured in his clicking, chittering language. The translation implant behind Leora's ear rendered his words into English. The creature's pain threshold exceeds initial projections by 47%. Note the cardiovascular response. Whiskers yowled, a sound that cut through Leora like sharpened glass. The old tabby's body convulsed against the restraints as Dravik applied another neural stimulus. The commander's scaled face remained impassive, his large black eyes reflecting only scientific curiosity. "Please stop," Leora whispered, knowing the soundproof barrier would swallow her words. "Please," she had begged before. For days, she had screamed and pleaded and thrown herself against the observation window. The Xathrin had simply recorded her reactions, adding them to their growing database on human emotional responses. They found her distress over a simple animal particularly noteworthy. Dravik made another notation on his holographic display. Specimen shows remarkable resilience despite advanced age and deteriorating organ function. This durability appears to be a common trait among Earth-origin domesticated species. The human attachment to such creatures remains perplexing. Leora watched Whiskers' chest rise and fall in rapid, shallow movements. The cat's green eyes, once so bright and alert, had glazed over with pain and exhaustion. She remembered finding him as a kitten in the gardens of New Seattle, remembered how he'd slept curled against her every night of the long journey through space, remembered his rumbling purr when she'd been frightened by the dark between stars. "Subject's vital signs are failing," one of Dravik's assistants announced. "Cardiac function at 32% and declining." "Acceptable," Dravik replied. "We have gathered sufficient data. Prepare for autopsy once expiration occurs." Something inside Leora broke then, not shattered, but crystallized. Her grief transformed into something harder, sharper, colder than the void outside the ship's hull. She turned from the window and walked to the panel that controlled the observation deck's environmental systems. The Xathrin had been careless, never imagining that a 12-year-old human child could pose any threat. They had given her limited access to the room's basic functions: lighting, temperature, air filtration. But they hadn't considered what humans could do with even the smallest advantage. Leora's fingers flew across the holographic interface, accessing subroutines and bypassing safety protocols with the same innate understanding that had made her the top student in the Perseverance's programming classes. The Xathrin systems were advanced, yes, but they followed logic patterns. And Leora had spent 3 months doing nothing but observing, learning, remembering. The environmental controls connected to the life support grid. Life support connected to power distribution. Power distribution connected to everything. Below, Dravik continued his work, oblivious. Whiskers had stopped moving. Leora's vision blurred with tears, but her hands remained steady. She input the final command sequence and watched the ship's power grid light up on her display like a neural map. With precise keystrokes, she began redirecting flow, creating cascading overloads and systems the Xathrin had thought isolated. The lights flickered. Dravik looked up, mandibles clicking in annoyance. What? The laboratory's containment fields collapsed. Gravity shifted. Atmospheric pressure equalized with a thunderous whoosh that sent instruments scattering. Emergency klaxons wailed as bulkheads automatically sealed, trapping Dravik and his team in the suddenly depressurizing chamber. Leora watched through the observation window as the Xa-Thrin scrambled for emergency equipment, their movements becoming sluggish in the thinning atmosphere. Dravik's eyes found hers through the transparent barrier, those large, black, emotionless eyes, and for the first time, she saw something that might have been recognition, perhaps even fear. She held his gaze as she initiated the final sequence. The laboratory's outer airlock opened to vacuum. 14 hours later, Captain Zhao of the human fleet carrier Indomitable stood in the recovered observation deck, surveying the damage. Her crew had detected the Xa-Thrin vessel's distress signal and found it drifting, its power systems catastrophically compromised, its crew of 14 dead from exposure to vacuum in the sealed laboratory section. They had found one survivor, a 12-year-old girl clutching a dead cat. She did all this, Zhao's tactical officer asked, gesturing to the ruined systems. According to the ship's logs, yes. Zhao looked down at her datapad. 12 years old. No formal engineering training. 3 months of captivity. She paused. They made her watch while they tortured her pet to death. The tactical officer's jaw tightened. What are we supposed to do with her? Zhao watched through the observation window as medical personnel tended to the girl. Leora sat wrapped in a thermal blanket, still holding the cat, her eyes distant and dry. We honor what she is, Zhao said quietly. A survivor, a defender of those she loves. She turned to her officer. And we make damn sure the Xa-Thrin Collective understands what happens when they mistake human compassion for weakness. The officer nodded. And the girl? She saved herself. She avenged her friend. And she crippled an enemy research vessel using nothing but a child's understanding of computer systems. Zhao allowed herself a grim smile.